She folded the silk dress with steady hands, even though her chest felt like it was caving inward. The phone vibrated again on the marble counter. Not his ringtone. A notification. She didn't need to open it. She already knew. Still, she did. A photo filled the screen. Flashing lights. Cameras. A charity gala in Seoul. Her husband, Kang Jae-hyun, smiling the way he used to smile, only at her. His hand rested comfortably on the waist of a younger woman in a silver gown. Too familiar. Too practiced. The caption read, "Power couple." She stared at the screen for 3 seconds. 4. 5. Then she locked the phone, placed it face down, and carried the folded dress into the bedroom. That was the moment she stopped waiting. Earlier that evening, she had been standing in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, sauce simmering slowly. The dining table was set for 2. Candles lit. Everything warm. Intentional. Quiet. She had texted him once. "Are you coming home?" No response. She didn't text again. She had learned, over the years, that silence was his loudest answer. Jae-hyun Kang was one of the most powerful men in Asia, founder and CEO of a multinational tech conglomerate. Newspapers called him visionary, ruthless, brilliant. Interviews praised his instincts, his boldness, his hunger. At home, he was distant, distracted, always somewhere else. And Yoon Seo-rin, his wife of 7 years, had learned how to exist without taking up space. When people spoke about her, they called her elegant, reserved, supportive. They never called her essential. She cleaned the kitchen alone that night, blew out the candles one by one, packed the food into containers he would never open. When she finally sat on the edge of the bed, the apartment felt too large, too quiet. Her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from her sister. "I saw it. Are you okay?" Seo-rin typed back slowly. Yes. She wasn't lying. Not exactly. She had crossed the threshold where pain stopped being loud. 3 years earlier, she had still cried. Back then, she had still asked questions. "Is it true?" she had asked him once, voice shaking but controlled. Jae-hyun hadn't denied it. He hadn't confirmed it either. He had sighed, rubbed his temple, and said, "You're overthinking. These events are part of my world." She had nodded, apologized, told herself she was being unreasonable. That was the pattern. Before marriage, Seo-rin had been sharp, precise. She spoke 4 languages fluently. She had a background in international regulatory law and cross-border business compliance. She had worked with governments, corporations, and financial institutions. When Jae-hyun decided to expand his company into emerging markets, it was Seo-rin who had mapped the strategy. She understood cultural barriers, legal loopholes, political risks. She had sat beside him late at night, pointing at documents, saying, "This won't work here, but this will." He would nod, approve, sign. And in public, he would say, "We were lucky." Luck. Over time, invitations stopped coming for her. Boardrooms turned into waiting rooms. Conversations shifted away when she entered. She was introduced as my wife, never as anything else. And slowly, invisibility settled in. 4 months before the gala photo, Seo-rin had sat across from a woman named Choi Min-young in a quiet office with tinted windows. Min-young had listened without interrupting. "No scandal," Seo-rin had said calmly. "No leaks. No confrontation." Min-young nodded. "And what do you want?" Seo-rin didn't hesitate. A clean exit. They met every 2 weeks after that. Documents were prepared. Assets reviewed. Timelines aligned. Seo-rin never cried in that office. She saved her emotions for the moments when she was alone. On one of those evenings, Jae-hyun came home late. Drunk, not on alcohol, but on attention. He loosened his tie, dropped his phone on the counter, and smiled at her as if nothing had happened. "You should have come tonight," he said casually. "It was a good event." Seo Rin looked at him. Really looked. "Was it?" she asked. He didn't notice the tone. "Yes. Good exposure." She nodded. "I'm glad." He moved past her, already mentally elsewhere. That was when she realized something terrifyingly simple. He truly believed she would never leave. He believed endurance was the same as loyalty. 2 weeks later, Seo Rin signed the final internal paperwork for a company no one knew she owned. It had been incorporated quietly 18 months earlier under a neutral name. No press, no announcements, no links to her husband. She had built it the way she lived, silently. While Jae-hyun chased headlines and applause, Seo Rin built something durable. Not flashy, necessary. When Jae-hyun announced another expansion, this time into regions he barely understood, his CFO, Han Dae-soo, hesitated during a meeting. "This region is complicated," Dae-soo said carefully. "Our previous success there was due to—" He stopped himself and glanced at Seo Rin's empty seat. Jae-hyun waved his hand dismissively. "We'll manage." The deal went through. 3 months later, it failed. Jae-hyun was furious. He blamed consultants, advisors, timing. He never once asked himself why things had worked before. At home, the distance between them grew colder. One night, Seo Rin stood in front of the mirror, holding the burgundy dress she had never worn after their engagement. The dress he had chosen years ago, back when he still looked at her like she mattered. She tried it on. It fit perfectly. She smiled, not with sadness, but with clarity. The next morning, she left the apartment early. Not with suitcases. Not with tears. Just a folder. At noon, Jae-hyun received a message from his assistant. "There's a document waiting for your signature." He skimmed it absent-mindedly. Then his expression changed. "Divorce," he muttered. He laughed once, sharp and incredulous. "She's bluffing." But Seo Rin didn't answer his calls. She didn't send explanations. She didn't leave a note. She left without a word. If you're still watching, pause for a second and ask yourself this. How many times have people assumed someone would stay, just because they always had before? If this story is hitting close to home, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. You'll want to see how this unfolds. Jae-hyun arrived home that night to an apartment stripped of warmth. Her books were gone. Her notes. Her presents. Only one thing remained. The burgundy dress, folded neatly on the bed. And for the first time in years, something unfamiliar crept into his chest. Fear. Jae-hyun stood in the center of the bedroom, staring at the folded dress like it was a verdict. For the first time since he could remember, the apartment didn't feel like it belonged to him. He called her again, straight to voicemail. He told himself she would calm down, that she always did. Seo Rin had a way of absorbing things quietly, then returning to normal as if nothing had happened. That was who she was. Steady, forgiving, reliable. He slept alone that night, irritated more than worried. By morning, irritation had turned into unease. Her toothbrush was gone. Her passport drawer was empty. The documents she always kept locked away, missing. This wasn't a tantrum. This was preparation. At the office, Jae-hyun tried to bury the feeling under work. Meetings stacked back to back. Presentations. Calls. But something was off. People spoke carefully around him. His assistant avoided eye contact. By midday, Han Dae-soo knocked on his door. "Sir," he said hesitantly, "legal has flagged a transfer request." Jae-hyun didn't look up. "Approve it." Dae-soo swallowed. "It's from your wife." That got his attention. "What kind of transfer?" "Her personal holdings. Dae-soo said. They were separated long ago. We didn't realize how extensive they were. Jae-hyun frowned. Separated how? Dae-soo hesitated again. Legally. The word hung in the air. Jae-hyun leaned back in his chair. Explain. Dae-soo opened the folder. Most of the early market advisory frameworks, the regulatory structures, they weren't under the company. Jae-hyun scoffed. Of course they were. I approved them. You approved the usage, Dae-soo corrected quietly. Not the ownership. Silence. Jae-hyun felt something cold crawl up his spine. That's impossible, he said. Those strategies came from. He stopped. From her. He stood abruptly. Where is she? Dae-soo didn't answer immediately. We believe she's in Europe. Believe. Jae-hyun snapped. You're my CFO. How do you believe where my wife is? Dae-soo met his gaze. With respect, sir, she stopped being just your wife a long time ago. That night, Jae-hyun sat alone in his office long after everyone else had left. He pulled old files, early contracts, advisory notes he had skimmed years ago without reading closely. Her name was everywhere, not public-facing, not celebrated, but essential. Every successful expansion he had bragged about, she had structured the groundwork. Every regulatory approval he had credited to luck, she had negotiated it. And he had never once asked her how she did it. 3 days later, headlines broke quietly. A boutique regulatory consultancy had secured a long-term partnership with a major European biotech consortium. The firm specialized in navigating complex international markets. The founder's name was listed simply. Y.S.R. Jae-hyun stared at the screen. No photo. No interviews. No mention of him. He felt something twist painfully in his chest. Meanwhile, Seo-rin sat in a glass-walled conference room overlooking a river she had never seen before. Her phone lay face down on the table, buzzing endlessly. She didn't look at it. Across from her, a senior executive smiled. Your framework saved us years of delay. Seo-rin nodded. Preparation always does. When the meeting ended, she stepped outside and breathed deeply. For the first time in years, the air felt light. She thought about calling her sister. Thought about checking her messages. She didn't. That evening, Jae-hyun finally reached her. She answered on the 4th ring. Seo-rin, he said, relief flooding his voice. We need to talk. Yes, she replied calmly. We do. Where are you? Somewhere I'm seen, she said. He winced. Is this about the photo? She smiled faintly, though he couldn't see it. No, that was just confirmation. Confirmation of what? That you thought I'd stay, she said. No matter what. He exhaled sharply. You're overreacting. We can fix this. Fix what? She asked. Your behavior? Or your assumption? There was a pause. I never meant to hurt you, he said finally. She nodded to herself. That's the problem. You never meant anything. The divorce finalized without spectacle. No public statements. No accusations. Just signatures and separation. Jae-hyun kept the penthouse, the cars, the press. Seo-rin kept her work. 3 months later, Jae-hyun's new relationship collapsed quietly. Not with betrayal or drama, but with boredom. The admiration faded. The conversations felt shallow. For the first time, he noticed the silence. He gave an interview months later, speaking vaguely about lessons and growth. He never mentioned her by name. But when asked about regret, his eyes flickered. There are people, he said slowly, who carry you until you forget they're doing it. Seo-rin watched that interview from a hotel room in another country. She turned it off before it ended. At an international forum weeks later, she stood on stage, composed and unassuming. She spoke about systems, ethics, sustainability. about long-term thinking. The audience listened. She wore the burgundy dress. Not for him. For herself. Later that night, she sat alone, looking out at the city lights. She thought about the years she had spent waiting, supporting, enduring, and how quietly she had walked away. If this story made you feel something, if you've ever been underestimated, unseen, or taken for granted, take a moment to like this video. Subscribe for more stories like this, and tell us in the comments, what moment made you realize it was time to choose yourself? Some people don't lose love because they stop being loved. They lose it because they stop seeing the person who gave it.